Okay, so welcome everyone to our January 2025 meet and greet. Very nice to see all of your faces here. Um, and yeah, really looking forward to sharing this evening with you. And I'm Josia, and we've got most of our team here, though not everyone, and there'll be a couple folks joining us shortly as well from our team. But yeah, we're just excited to be here and share with you all. And just to give you a little bit of a layout of what to expect tonight. So we're going to start off with, I'm going to offer a guided somatic meditation just to support us to come a little bit more fully present here into the body. And then I will be introducing each of the people who is here on our team tonight, and they'll be sharing a little bit about their own personal journey with grief, how they got here. It's grief work is one of those things that it's not really like golf or skiing where you're like, oh, I think that might be interesting to try that. It's generally we have a story of something that brought us to this space. And yeah, it's very medicinal to be able to hear and share our stories. So yeah, so we'll do that. And then I'll share a little bit about our Dark Woods Grief Support Group. For those of you that might be interested in joining us there, we have registration open until February 7th. And yeah, the team that's here tonight is our facilitation team in that group. And we also have a couple of our community members here. So yeah, so I will invite you to just get comfortable and just, start to notice that you have a body. And just checking with your body, is there anything that you could do to actually support your body to arrive here a little bit more fully? Maybe it's grabbing another cushion or a blanket, or maybe it's just, finding a stretch that is just right for this moment. Maybe shrugging your shoulders up to your ears, letting them drop. And maybe just taking a look around the room that you're in right now. One of the practices we use a lot in our community is called checking for bears, and it's literally taking a look around the room and just observing through the eyes what is around you. And if there's no bears or other things that might be scary or dangerous, then you can invite your nervous system just to relax a little bit more. So just looking around, noticing color, shape, texture. It's good to look, all the way around behind you. And then just coming, taking your time and coming back to center. And if it's comfortable for you, closing your eyes. Or you can also just allow your gaze to be soft and pointed downwards towards the floor if that's more comfortable for you. And just beginning to notice the breath, just noticing that, not judging the breath or trying to make it anything special, but just noticing that the body is breathing. And this miracle of breath coming into the body. And welcoming the breath into the body. Welcoming the breath just as it is. And noticing your seat, and particularly the contact that your body is making with the seat underneath of you. So the weight of and the compression of your sits bones into the chair, your butt and your thighs, how they meet the seat underneath of you. And noticing your feet on the floor and just giving your toes a little wiggle to help bring more awareness to your feet. And just noticing the earth underneath of you. So even though we might be inside and on a chair, and some of us might even be like 10 stories up in a building, there still is that earth underneath all of us supporting our weight. So just recognizing the earth underneath of you and allowing the body to rest into that support, like even 2% more. And noticing the back body and your spine. And if you have something behind you that you can lean back into, you can actually let yourself lean back into the support behind you, and then notice the contact that your back body makes with that support. And again, just see if you can let the body relax into that support even 2% more. And noticing the space behind you and all of the ancestors who stand behind you. And particularly inviting in the well ancestors who stand behind you. So those sometimes they're a ways back to find our well ancestors, but we all have them. The ones who were, pre-trauma, pre-colonial influence, the ones who were connected to nature, connected to health, connected to love. Sometimes they are, very close in our lineage, but sometimes we have to go way back. And all of our ancestors, whether they were healthy or not, they are the reason why we're here now today. The fact that they survived. And most of them probably, in most of our lineages, there's very difficult things, sometimes horrifying things that they survived. And, them surviving allows us to be here now. So some say that we are the answers to the prayers of our ancestors. The opportunity that we have here tonight to connect into this body of work, of working with our grief, is an opportunity that many of them may not have had. We have this beautiful opportunity to answer their prayers. And so we can just welcome in the support of our ancestors here, and of the ancestors of the land. And also taking a moment to just call in any other support that you'd like to have with you here tonight. So any guides, any, friends that you have a deep connection with that you would just want to invite their energy in, any elders, any animals, friends, any spirit guides, just anything that you'd like to do just energetically or in the form of prayer to create this space for yourself here tonight. And then just beginning to tune into the field that we're creating together. All of our hearts, all of our energy coming together tonight. Connection. And I would like to invite our collective intention for our time together tonight into this prayer, that may the work that we do here together tonight benefit all beings everywhere. May all beings be happy. May all beings be peaceful. And may all beings be free of suffering and the causes of suffering. And may we all recognize our liberation together. Thank you. And just opening your eyes, and again, just taking a look around your space, orienting to the room that you're in, the space that you're in. Inviting your nervous system to notice if it's safe enough in the space you're in that you can, again, just let your nervous system relax a little bit more. Yeah. And welcome to the folks who jumped on just since we started. Welcome Raven, welcome Laura, welcome Joanna. Hi. Okay, so I want to now introduce our amazing team, and I'm so excited. Our team is bigger than it's ever been, our facilitation team this year, with I think it's 7 of my student interns joining our facilitation team. And then Elizabeth, my longtime mentor here on our team, and Jane, our team elder on our team as well. And yeah, we've just got such an incredible team this year. So I'm so excited to introduce them. And I know that Sitka needs to jump off and head to work fairly shortly. So I'm going to start with introducing Sitka. And yeah, just bear with me for one moment. Okay. Yeah. So Sitka really brings a super special kind of magic. I remember what the first retreat that we were together at, you know, I'm facilitating and there's all kinds of different things going on, and just every once in a while Sitka would come pass me by and she'd just put something into my hand. I'd be like, oh, what is it this time? Oh, it's mugwort. Oh, it's tobacco. She'd be like, and then she'd be like, yeah, burn that, or yeah, put that over there. And just really bringing this beautiful magic. And she has a lot of experience in being with grief and being in grief ritual spaces. She's one of many of us who were born into grief, and her commitment has been to transform her wounds into gifts for the world. And you know, I've watched your capacity expand tremendously, even just in this last year, but you also came in with a big capacity, you know, that I think is from your own walk with grief, and really shows up in your, you know, just your willingness to be present for others and your ability to be present for others. And yeah, she has sat in ritual with Teresa Charvet, Lawrence Cole, Terry Carranza, and Mary Hart of the Sacred Groves. And through this, she's been immersed in the teachings of Malidoma and Sabanfu Somé, who brought traditional Dagara grief ritual to North America in the 90s. And I feel like, you know, Sabanfu and Malidoma really were the ones who brought the idea of even that we could do grief ritual to us. And even though there's all different ways of doing it now, they really have been super influential. And of course, she's also a graduate of the 2024 Dark Woods Grief Tending and Ritual Facilitation Training. And so I'll let you, if you want to unmute yourself and say hi, and maybe just share, yeah, if you want to share a little bit about, you know, what opened your life to, you know, you knowing and you stepping into the grief work, and what do you think has shifted for you, you know, since that time?
Yeah, thanks for that. It was really sweet to hear the perspective that you had working with me and have had working with me. So thank you for that. Oh, yeah, so much of my life, I feel like I was carrying the weight of grief by myself. And I didn't feel like there was anyone else out there that could sit with me through it, that could understand what I was going through. I felt really alone. And I did a lot of my own personal work alone for years. And I grew up in a really violent home. And so a lot of my trauma comes from like very, very young age. And then about 2 years ago, I went to a gathering and I was sitting in a room full of people. We were recording the whales Songs for Grief album. And after the first day of recording, um, Ale, who's the person who put the album together, just told the crowd of 200 people, if you need to cry, let it out. And everyone in that room started wailing. And I was just in shock at the way that my body reacted to being in a space like that. Um, the way that it felt like it moved so much inside of me that after that day, I was like, I need to understand what all of this is now because I have missed out on so much grieving alone. And I'm not one to tiptoe around something that I want to learn to do. And so I immediately signed up for two mentorship programs, one with Josiah and one with Lawrence Cole in Washington. And yeah, I've been sitting with, excuse me, I've been sitting with Lawrence a few times. I try to every month when I can. And he's an incredible elder to sit with, and his team is really, really amazing. And they do a different style of grief ritual than Josiah does. So I've been learning a bunch of different ways to hold grief, but it feels like the first book I read that Malidoma wrote, he said that your wound and your gift are like two sides of the same coin, and that you can be blinded by your wound, but once you're able to heal it, you're able to find your gift on the other side. And so that kind of sealed the deal of like, this is what I'm doing. I'm taking my struggle and turning it into a gift back to the world. So I'm so grateful to be here with all of you.
Thank you so much.
Mhm.
I actually didn't know that was your first like experience of being in a grief space, was that recording. It must have been such a powerful place to,
Yeah, it
yeah.
felt like when I tried to like sum it up on like what it felt like inside of my body, it felt like I was standing on like my tippy big toe on the top of a mountain in a lightning storm. Like every piece of my like nerves were just standing on end, just feeling everything that was happening in the room. It was wild.
Beautiful. Yeah, that definitely, grief ritual can definitely feel like that's such a great description of the feeling. Somebody's asking about the name of it. Maybe you could post it in the chat thread. Yeah, and for those of you who are coming to the retreat, Sitka will also be on our retreat team and probably at a few of our retreats this year. Shanda, is it okay if I go to you next? Well, I'll introduce you first, though. You have a little bit of time to, yeah, yeah. So Shanda, actually, we've known each other for quite a few years, and Shanda was like a participant in our grief support group community for a year or like a few years, I think, a while, anyways, definitely. Yeah, 2 years. Okay, yeah, and then Shanda did the Dark Woods grief tending and ritual facilitation training last year, just graduated, so yay. And Shanda lives in Inuvik up in the Northwest Territories in the, I hope I don't mispronounce this, the Gwich'in and Inuvialut settlement regions. Is that not okay? You can repeat that if you, yeah. And she loves being out on the land. A lot of times when we're talking, she's like out walking, and even though it's like very cold there, yeah. And yeah, she just has this beautiful deep yearning to rebuild the deep connection to other beings, human and non-human, and to experience the vastness of the universe, and is learning to use movement, acceptance, compassion, and to heal and just discover herself, after years of masking and living in these trauma response patterns. And as I said, she recently completed the Dark Woods grief tending and ritual facilitation training. She's also a stepmom, dog mom, marine protected area senior biologist, witch, consultant, disruptor, neurospicy human, partner, daughter, crafter, and sister. And she currently, during the day when she's not facilitating in our grief support group, works in wildlife co-management. I should let you say that because I'm just going to mispronounce it again. With the Underworld and Gwich'in peoples who have signed land claims that guarantee their involvement in wildlife management. And she also works to move the process of co-management closer to true equal power sharing and consideration of traditional knowledge and ways of knowing in what are still very colonial and science-based practices. And I will let you share more about yourself, if you want to unmute yourself, and anything else that you wanted to add to that. And then also, if you wouldn't mind sharing similarly to Sitka, what really opened the door to this work for you, and what do you think has shifted for you since that time?
Yeah, thanks, Josia. It's Inuvialuit, is how it's pronounced. But you got Gwich'in. I'm actually, right now I'm in Whitehorse, so I'm actually on Kwanlundun and Tan Gwich'in territory. But normally I'm in the Inuvialuit settlement region. Yeah, also, I'm very long-winded, which I think is evident by Josia's reading of my bio, which I wrote. I'm just like, you need to know everything. So I guess take note. Yeah, you know what? I was thinking about this question of whether there was like a moment where I kind of started to work with my grief and to really like acknowledge and see my grief. And I was sort of like, no, it was just this path that I was on, and I burnt out really bad in my previous job, and then was just in this like deep, debilitating depression and anxiety that was totally, I'd never experienced it before. And so I was blindsided by it and just like had no idea what to do with myself. And so I kind of like was reaching for every possible, it was like, okay, I'll do therapy. Okay, I'll try mindfulness. Okay, I'll read books. Okay, I'll, just like how do I get out of this? And I think I was in that it was kind of like a frantic space of just like, let me out for quite a while. And I mean, I was probably getting like incrementally a little bit better and learning to cope and just understand. But then I think I was thinking about it and I'm like, oh, my first somatic therapy session where I sort of touched into this like simmering anger that's sort of always there and actually looked underneath that and was like, oh my God, I'm really sad. I'm really sad. There's so much just sadness and pain and longing and all of these things that I really had like run away from my whole life, just, by like staying busy or by, partying a lot when I was younger. And just, I kind of realized that that was there and it wasn't going anywhere. And so that's, I say I developed practices and they are all still practices because they only happen sometimes. But just really learning to see, for one thing, see what's there. And yeah, just allowing it, accepting it, remembering that it is, it's a wave, it's an ebb and a flow. Any emotion that comes through is not there to stay, even if it really feels like it is. Yeah, and so I just through mostly, yeah, like mindfulness and then the grief practices, and the ability to see that those emotions come and go, I think has been like that's been my guiding light, is the belief like down in my bones, in my soul, that this too shall pass, whether this is good, bad, awesome, ugly, horrible, excellent, it will pass. So yeah, I think I find a lot of peace and ease in that, even in the really, really hard times. I just know that they'll get different. And that's the biggest difference from when I was in that really, deep, deep, dark space. I couldn't understand or see or believe that it would change. So that's the hugest difference I found in working with my grief.
Thank you for sharing that. That's, yeah, such a human experience. And do you want to say a little bit about, and it's okay if you don't, but I'm just curious if you would want to share a little bit about just the cultural grief of living where you live and being in, like, how that.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's super on my mind today because I was just telling the team I'm at a conference right now with it's a really Indigenous led conference where there's so many young people, young women, really like in powerful, doing powerful things and incredible, like just so they're so motivated and they're so inspiring. And yeah, so I think like the grief and the pain of colonization and of cultural loss and language loss. I live with people who have land claims, so it's not as much that loss of territory, and that's a little less in this region. But there's still the loss of connectivity, and there's the intergenerational trauma of residential schools, and it's heavy, like there's I think that's part of what I'm learning too, is that I take everything in, and I'm learning to figure out how to set those boundaries and not process everyone else's grief, but be able to hold space for other people to be in their grief but not take it on. That's been a huge teaching. But yeah, it's really tough. Like, I guess just maybe one of the best ways to say it is just the prevalence of people who are struggling and have turned to substances. And also, like, I mean, I've been in the community 7 years, and a year has not gone by where there hasn't been multiple losses by suicide, and really like some awful accidents and things. And yeah, that's been a lot to look at and to like acknowledge and to hold space for. Yeah, so that's been part of my journey for sure as well.
Yeah, thanks for being willing to share that. I just know you're so impacted and so passionate about the culture, and yeah, that it is heavy. It's a big part of what you're processing through your system. So yeah. Okay, I don't want to put you guys too much on the spot, so I'm going to start to maybe say ahead who I'm going to call on. But I'm going to call on Sanaz next because I feel like she's always ready. And then maybe I'll call on Kimber after that. Okay. So yeah, Sanaz has navigated her own path through grief many times in many different ways, and is really passionate now about helping others find their way. As an Iranian woman and immigrant, she's faced multiple forms of loss and what is coined as disenfranchised grief, often without access to resources or community support. And so this journey really taught her how isolating grief can feel and the importance, how critical it is to process it. Over the years, she's learned to channel her grief and recognize its transformative power. Professionally, she has a diverse background that complements her role as a grief facilitator. She's a product manager with degrees in electrical and biomedical engineering and management. She's mentored young professionals and volunteered for a suicide helpline, both of which have strengthened her ability to support people during difficult times. Her passion for storytelling has helped her connect with people on a deeper level and understand the power of shared experiences in healing. As a facilitator, she strives to create compassionate and supportive spaces for others, grounded in empathy and enriched by professional and cultural insights. She has a particular compassion for those grieving pets, thanks to her relationship with her dear Polo, her adopted senior dog. This is one of the most heartbreaking experiences because he taught her, as dogs do, right, to open her heart and love so deeply. She teaches yoga and meditation and is also a recent graduate of our Dark Woods Grief Tending and Ritual Facilitation Training. And she also currently serves as a peer grief facilitator in the Kitchener-Waterloo area in Ontario, where she lives. And yeah, if you want to unmute yourself, Sanaz, and yeah, can you share with us the same question, just a little bit about your background and kind of what brought you into grief work and what's shifted for you since that time? Yeah.
Thank you, Lucia, and hi everyone. I like to tell people that I'm an engineer because that sets the tone on how analytical and disconnected I was with my body. Just like I lived in my brain and completely, I was trained to disconnect. And what I lost my close friend when I was 26. We were in the same program, our masters, and doing biomedical engineering. And I, at the time, like he was my best friend, and we spent so many hours together. That really didn't initiate anything for me. I went into complete numbness, and then a little bit after that, I immigrated to Canada. I came alone to study another master's. I like studying. And then the grief hit me in a different way, being alone, away from community, away from family, not having anybody. And also, if anybody knows about Iran, it just being an Iranian gives you like a tremendous amount of grief, regardless of who you are, especially if you're a woman. And the time that I came here, it was just it was like a really rough situation back in Iran, people getting arrested. But now it's like normal business these days. Any of those things still didn't really get me initiated on to like really recognizing what's happening and like needing to work on my grief until I started volunteering at the crisis line and I saw other people's grief. I was running a candlelight vigil for people who lost their loved ones through suicide, and that was my really I tell you that was my initiation. Until I saw other people's grief, I did not realize how much grief I had in my life. And then life had a really funny way of like teaching you more. So I did start my healing. I would like it. I would call it like my healing quest, my healing. From then, so I started like working with mainly trauma and all the different things that were coming up. But then I had many other situations happening, and like I lost my job within a couple of months after that. My mom got diagnosed with cancer. Then I lost my pregnancy of 12 weeks, and then it just like everything just kept hitting me. And then yeah, that's why like it kept me going into learning more. I became a yoga meditation teacher just because I felt the need that like I need to connect with my body. I need to work on my healing. Then I lost my friend 5 years ago, January 2020. And that was another a very traumatizing experience because of the situation. And I kept working. Like all of these things kept me working in different aspects of my tangled trauma, grief, all the things that were just like part of my life. And it's just it's ongoing. And I lost my dog last year, January. That honestly, that was like it put everything into perspective for me. It was just the hardest of all of this was that. And well, I've been working with helping others for a while because I do feel that it took me a long time to find my way. And if somebody else can help you to shorten this process, why not? Why would you need to suffer and find your way like without help? Like there's so much help out there and you can find that. And I did find help. There were many people who like Josia's group and Josia's team, the whole people, like many people who came along the way and helped me in my path. And I want to be one of those people who help others.
Thank you. Yeah, I think when you recognize how it's like, of course there is help out there, but with this, with grief, it is very stigmatized, and it is sometimes hard to find the right space for it. And so when you realize how much more is needed, it's definitely that impulse to step into it. And yeah, it's been beautiful to watch you this year in the training, and just like you said at the end, healed some stuff. I told Sanaz I'm going to write that down as a testimonial. Healed some stuff, okay?
I healed some stuff last year.
Yeah, you did. I saw it. Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm so happy to have you on the team.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm gonna go to Kimber now, Kimber Finney. And Kimber, we met because she came to actually our last Soul Song retreat. She showed up all the way from Oregon, driving, amazing. First one there, she was the first one who arrived. And actually, this is a funny story, so I'll tell it, because the administration and all of it was such a nightmare for that particular retreat, for reasons which I won't get into, to the point where, like, as people were about to arrive, I was like, I'm never doing this again, never. And then Kimber drove up the driveway, and as soon as I saw her, I was like, oh, I'll do it again. It just already made it worth it as soon as I saw this woman. Kimber is an incredible woman. She's a naturally intuitive healer. She follows her gut in everything she does. She has been studying healing grief and death in depth since her own initiation into grief in the summer of 2023. In December of that year, she found us and came to that retreat, and she knew that she had found her calling then and there. And so she is now a graduating student of our facilitator training, and is also a certified death doula through Village Death Care. Kimber has the biggest heart, such a huge heart, and she brings a depth of humor and hard-earned wisdom to everything she touches. And it's true. She currently lives in Bend, Oregon, on the traditional territory of the Wasco, Wanakana, Warm Springs, and Northern Paiute peoples. And I'll pass it to you, Kimber, if you would like to share just whatever you'd like to share about your that initiation into grief. What's happened for you. Yeah.
Hi, everyone. My daughter passed away in July of 2023, so it hasn't been very long. My life was on a very straight and narrow path with really, I didn't see any other roads. There was just, this is what we were doing. And it meant it involved being extremely close with my daughter and my granddaughter. And we bought a house together and we lived together. And we knew where we were going. And then all of a sudden we got thrown this curveball, and everything changed. And when she passed away, it just went black. Everything went black, and I had no idea where I was, what I was supposed to do, where I was supposed to go. Nothing made sense anymore. And I told Josiah then, and I stick to my guns. I have no idea how I found her. It was meant to be, and I believe my daughter led me there. And I mean, from beginning to end, from when I found her to when I ended up in Canada, it was not more than about, I don't even think it was 3 weeks. It was really quick. I found her, I emailed her, I got a scholarship, and I was in the car driving. And other than that, I really didn't know. And I love any of you that may have been to ritual or been to her retreats will know about the ritual before the ritual, because that is me. What have I done? How am I going to get out of it? If somebody else wants my spot, you take it. I'm just going to cancel. And I didn't do any of that. And it's the best thing that's ever happened to me. I still believe that I'm being led on this path, and it's just one day at a time, one step at a time. And now all of a sudden here I am at this meet and greet with all of these wonderful people. And I also am discovering, like, the fact that I have ignored and not paid any attention to a whole lot of grief throughout my entire life. And so that's kind of bringing this forward. And I feel blessed to somebody that has major trust issues. I am blessed to be in this group of people, establishing these relationships, most of which are amazing young women, and watching, and them, just being there for me and supportive for me, and watching them grow. And I'm just learning so much. And I am developing my new path to help people with grief, and new directions and loneliness and all of that. And um, yeah, this is amazing. It's amazing for me, and it's amazing for me to think that I'm actually moving that direction to help other people. And I can't say enough about all of these people, but especially Jane, because Jane is just she is the elder of knowledge and experience. And I just so grateful to be here, and getting to meet all of you people and make these relationships.
Thank you, Kimber,
Yeah.
so much. I'm just so grateful to have your huge heart on our team.
Mm.
And yeah, it's pretty incredible. I mean, it's like sometimes being of service just is not an option once you walked a certain path. It's like that's what we have to do.
Mm-hmm.
You just show up for that so fully, and you bring so much. Yeah. Okay. Sabrina, without warning, I'm going to put you on the spot now, my dear. Sabrina is a world traveler, singer, and creatrix, and contributor towards a new embodied culture. She's creating it. She uses embodiment practices, ritual, song, yoga, breathwork, and Thai yoga massage in a beautifully woven form that facilitates emotional release. She values the process of emotional release through cathartic expressions, along with bringing support and safety to the nervous system. Incredible body work. If you live in Eugene or you ever are passing through, she's amazing. I'll let you talk about your initiation into grief. But Sabrina's also completed 700 hours of yoga teacher training through the School Yoga Institute and Paramanand Institute of Yoga Sciences and Research. She learned Thai yoga massage through Hadidi Thai Massage in Lisbon, Portugal. She studied sacred space holding through the Kula Collective in Guatemala, and she's learned to use her gift of song through many ceremonies over the world. And she's also a graduate of our 2024 cohort of the Dark Woods Grief Tending and Ritual Facilitation Training. And what else was I going to say about you? Oh, that Sabrina is also on our retreat team. So anyone who's coming to the retreat in a couple weeks, she will be there. So if you want to unmute yourself, my dear, and yeah, what brought you into grief work and what's happened for you since?
Thank you. Yeah. Hi, everybody. Happy to be here. Sorry, I'm getting distracted by my grocery order making substitutes. Sorry. Yeah, so what initiated me into grief was losing my son in preterm labor halfway through the pregnancy in a very traumatic way in 2022. And I had unknowingly carried grief for my whole life, pretty much, and growing up in an unsafe and abusive home. But I was pretty like dissociated from it. Or I would swing from like complete dissociation to just like really grand, too big outward expressions of it. And had no capacity of holding what was there in my body in a safe way. And so after I lost my son, I was, pretty like spiraling out, and still didn't have any tools or help or capacity to hold what I was going through. And I just happened to go to a gathering where there was a grief ritual being offered through the Dagara lineage. And I had no idea what it was. And I just joined because I was like, yeah, I'm grieving. And it was so earth-shattering for me. And I still was, not really able to fully be there and be present, but I got to witness so many people being there and being present. And there was, song and drumming, and like this container building and symbolism and touch, and support between participants, and wailing and screaming and crying, and it just felt like I just had no idea that this was a thing, that people did this. And so that kind of like turned the light on for me. And then several months later, I actually was doing some medicine work in Peru, and I just had this vision that came to me, like mother work, and like how I was going to embody like the work of a mother, even though was now a childless mother. And it just felt very clear that I was to be of service by like shepherding, people through the passages of life, of birth and death. And but death was the one that really spoke out to me, and that's kind of been my path since. And yeah, and so since then I've been in Josia's training, and then also joining Lawrence Cole and Ale for their ceremonies and our rituals, and just kind of like eating up as much grief work and knowledge that I can. And yeah, I would say what's shifted for me is it feels like I'm going through this maturation of like towards being fully alive and authentic in my body. And yeah, and this grief work has been this access point to building community, building trust in my body, building like a welcoming space for me to exist in my body. And yeah, building community. And that's what I'm really passionate about. So yeah, grief work feels like it's been this path of bringing me back to my authentic self. And it just makes it even better that we're doing that together in community. Yeah, I hope all that made sense.
Oh, so beautiful. I really loved what you said about the mother work, as a childless mother, but that mothering work, so needed, so needed. Yeah. Thank you. Really beautiful way of framing it too.
Thank you.
We're almost at the top of the hour, and I need to pee. I'm guessing some other people might need to. So let's take like a 5-minute body break, get yourself water, tea, go use the restroom if you need to, and we'll meet back at 6 o'clock Pacific time, and see you then. Blanche, while we're both here, did you, did you see my email about if you can get a later flight on the Monday? Oh, you're muted, love. Here. No, not yet. There should be a little button, a little blue button that wants you to click it that will unmute you. I don't know if I can
Okay.
actually unmute. There we go. Yes, great.
I'm a full-time student,
I figure you're
and
just so busy. I figured.
yeah, I am just so swamped, especially with trying to get away. I thought I read it as it wouldn't be a problem if I could not. Is that how I heard you?
Well, I'm just a little bit, the thing that I'm worried about is the carpool situation, because the thing is, if you are flying out at that time, you have to be
Mhm.
at the airport 3 hours before your flight leaves. And
Okay.
I think you have it booked for 3:30, so that would mean you got to be at the airport at like 12:30, and it's about a 2.5 to 3 hour travel from the retreat center to the airport. So that puts you needing to leave at like 9:30 a.m. So
From Denver, because I'm flying the
no,
first flight.
no, your flight coming is good. You're good on the flight
Oh,
coming. It's on the
oh, okay.
departure on the Monday.
Okay. So what time would you like me to leave?
So ideally, if you're not flying out before 5 o'clock, that would be perfect, because then it lines up that you don't have to leave early or anything like that.
So you would like for me to fly out after 5?
Yeah.
After 5. Okay, there are not a lot of flights, but I am my daughter's father gave me flight benefits, and so I fly standby, and usually it's not a problem. But so I can make the reservation, I can change it, but it's always subject to seating on the plane because I can't. The seats are like $1,200, but
Oh, wow. Okay.
yeah, what a gift, right?
What a gift. That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, I will call and change it to that Monday after 5 if I can. I'll text you.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And right now I've got you carpooling with Rachel and Suanna. So we'll just have
Okay.
to make sure they have your flight information when you're arriving, and then they'll scoop you up,
Okay.
bring you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. No worries. Yeah,
Mhm.
fortunately we have Rachel. She's very badass and bold. She's like, no problem. I will navigate.
Oh,
I
because I don't know
will
what
get
the
you
hell. Yeah,
there.
I don't know what I'm doing. I'm like a ferry. Where am I going? But it doesn't
I,
matter.
I know the ferry, everyone's intimidated by the ferry. It's actually not that big of a deal, but I understand why that it is intimidating for people for sure. You're like, I gotta get on a boat. Like, what is that? You know, people just can't, you just can't visualize
Mhm,
like you've done it,
mhm.
I think so.
I've lived in Oregon before, and I've caught the ferry over to islands. So, but it's just people put their cars on the boats, and it's just kind of crazy. But I'm
Yeah.
trusting. I'm trusting in you, and you're always so prompt about getting back to me. I really appreciate it.
Oh, for
Really
sure.
appreciate it.
Yeah. Do my best.
Mhm.
I am, as I was just telling the rest of our team before the call, that I am going to hire a retreat manager for our next retreat because so many details.
Uh,
Awesome.
is this your full-time career?
Yeah, more
Mm.
than full time. Yeah. Okay.
What's the difference in time from there and here? Right.
Uh,
Oh, 3 hours. Three
yeah,
hours.
you
Okay.
guys are on Eastern. Yeah,
Hmm.
Jane's on Eastern
Hmm.
too in New York. And
Hmm.
okay, welcome back, everybody. If you could just well, actually, I think it's okay. We'll just start in again. And I know some folks don't want to have their cameras on, so that's fine. Hi, Madison. Welcome. Um, so actually, Madison, I'm going to put you on right on the spot and introduce you first. Because we've gone through pretty much everyone except for Elizabeth and Jane, who I want to honor their, their eldership in the sense of, I mean, Elizabeth, I'm not putting you in the elder. Well, you really are an elder now, actually. You turned 60 now. So, okay, yeah. Okay. So yeah, we're going to honor their eldership and allow them to go last, because this is one of the traditions, is we always invite the elders to speak last so they kind of round up what everyone says in a way, they know what to add, what has been left out. Um, so so Madison so Madison was on our facilitation team last year, as she was, along with Jane, a graduate of our first facilitator training, which was in 2023. And she is now our online community manager. So that means that she supports in our online community forum. She does posts a couple times a week, kind of inviting people to share gratitude, and what's the other one we have now, welcoming, and yeah, she just supports in that forum. People share a lot in the forum, as those of you who know are in there share a lot, and so we like to be really on just helping support and love them up when they share, and Madison does an exemplary job of that. And she also is our customer care team, so if you email us, she'll probably be the one taking care of you. And what else do I want to say about this wonderful woman? Yeah, well, Madison, she's an artist, very heartful creature and grief tender, and now is living on the lands of the Anishinaabe people of Fort William First Nation, now known as Thunder Bay, which is also the land she was born on. She's currently studying social work at Lakehead University. She's also completed 2 years of study at Wisdom of the Earth Wilderness School and reverently carries the medicine of deep nature connection and community building from that time. The loss of village and colonization being one of her most heartbreaking griefs, which I'm sure she'll talk more about. She's very devoted to learning and embodying the old wisdom, stories, rituals, and traditions of her ancestors with the intention of healing. She is autistic, and on her journey of breaking the masks and becoming more of who she already is, her natural self, being extremely sensitive, she recognizes the wound as a gift in her autism oh so very well. And she's walking the path of self-love, allowing herself to exist as she is through embodiment and courage. And I have been able to bear witness to a lot of that journey unfolding as we've known each other for probably like 5 years now, I think. So deeply honored, and invite you to unmute yourself. And the question that I've been asking everyone to just share from tonight is, well, 2 parts. What do you feel initiated you into your journey of like actually working with your grief? And what do you feel has shifted for you or transformed for you since or through that time? And you're muted.
Thank you, Josia. I also just want to say to everybody who's here, I'm sorry that I'm just arriving now. So I'm sorry to miss all that's happened so far. But thank you for welcoming me now. And I feel like what brought me onto my journey of grief and tending to it was through Josia, as she kind of mentioned. We came into connection with each other many years ago when I was really in crisis and really needing help. And we worked together one-on-one. And then that had been for a while. And you, Josia, had told me about how you have this grief group. And I remember just being like, like I still really had it under, like, I thought grief was just if somebody has died in your life. That's all I knew. I think I was, how old was I at the time? I think I was 19. And yeah, so I just was like, oh, okay. But for some reason, I don't even know why, I joined and I was like, okay, like you keep telling me about this thing. So I joined her group, and it ended up being great timing because I also started my first year of school in the Wisdom of the Earth Wilderness School, and being there really brought up a lot of my grief that I don't think I had recognized. I really wanted to, like, there was a lot of loss of innocence going on in my life where I really wanted to see the world in a certain light. And I just kept, as I kept growing as an adult, it was like shifting and I didn't want to admit it. And being in this school, a lot of the world view that I was trying to hold for myself got poked and like broken. So a lot of my grief that I feel is for the land. And like Josie had said, the loss of a lot of culture and the loss of community, at least especially for me, for my people and my ancestors. And so that's what brought me onto my grief journey, was kind of a combination of being in Josia's grief support group, being able to put the word grief to what I was feeling. And instead of like sadness or like, and trying to like brush it off, like, why am I so sad? Why am I so upset constantly about the world? So that's what I can say for that. And what's changed in my life since then is I have a lot more capacity to feel uncomfortable emotions. which has grown through the help of Josiah, also the help of Elizabeth, and some other people who have helped me in my life by doing grief work in this somatic way, involving my body. And I was really, for a long time, grieving, but I was getting lost in the trauma vortex of like feeling like I'm never going to get out of this painful feeling and getting sucked in. And I literally, for many years of my life, I cried every day. But in a way where it was not healthy, like I was getting lost. So I started to learn more of how I can feel some and come back also to the goodness of life and the beauty of life and enjoyment. And yeah, I'm so much more healthy and connected to who I am and what matters to me. And by being able to feel more, I'm also able to recognize like what matters to me and start to actually take action. Like there's mobility in me instead of just getting lost in emotions and pulled down. So that's what I'll say. I hope that that was answering your question. Thank you.
So beautiful and so important what you shared. And I think like, I mean, I think you're still probably the youngest person on our team. I know you definitely were the youngest person in the first training we did. And I think, yeah, I think you're still the youngest. And like, but I just emphasize that because I think as like, you know, someone who's now in my 40s and some of you are significantly older than that, if we think from the perspective of like what youth are facing when they look at the world today and like the potential of, you know, the future, it's tremendous, you know, it's huge. And so if they can have these skills, you know, to be able to work with that energy of that, like how can you look at the world and not feel tremendous grief if you actually take in what's going on, you know, but just exactly as Madison's saying, to hone that skill of also being able to take in the beauty that is there and that is often right in front of us, you know, perhaps not on our screen, but in the world in front of us, in nature, and in the, you know, the beauty of the heart in our common humanity, and resourcing, being able to resource to that. It's like we should definitely be teaching this in school these days, you know, if not always, but really these days, like it's so key. So thank you for articulating that process for yourself so beautifully as a super sensitive being, you know, that's so cares so much about the world. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I know that you use the words grief and praise a lot. I know that those go hand in hand. And I think it's so important for more people to even have awareness of these things like grief and praise, because I know you know this, Josiah, but like everywhere I look, I see people stuck where they're not grieving and they also don't see beauty. It's like they're like stuck in it's too much to feel, so I'm gonna try and not feel it, but then they can't feel beauty, and it's really, really sad and scary. So yeah, it's like, and by people not feeling their grief, also they're disconnected from what matters to them.
Mhm.
And
Exactly.
it's, yeah, life is so empty without that.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I mean, I personally actually, well, maybe I'll just tell a little bit my story now because I personally really identify with that as well. I won't go into, you know, my bio and my experience and all of that because y'all can read that on the website, and most of you probably know at this point anyways, but you know, I've been doing this work for most of my adult life, and the reason being that I just really couldn't do anything else. It was like right from as soon as I learned of, healing work, I was drawn right into it because I just knew that that was the direction that I needed to go. But even with, I'd done Reiki and body work and craniosacral therapy training, and was like getting into somatic therapy, and I mean, somatics is very powerful, but the grief work, and particularly the community grief work, I feel it's so necessary. Exactly what Madison is speaking to, this place where, for me, that was such a big thing for so long, is I would look out at the world and I would so desperately want to help or like do something to contribute and to shift things in a better direction, which, now that I've reflected on it for a long time and very deeply, I also recognize that there's a developmental wound there in those of us who like feel like we have to change things, and heal the world. It's like that's actually like a developmental wounding that can come from growing up in a world that we couldn't change, right, where things were very bad and we couldn't change that circumstance in our family of origin. Not to say that the desire to contribute and make positive change is wounding, but the feeling of like, I absolutely have to do this or I will die kind of thing is the trauma wound. And for me, that wounding, it kept me stuck for so long, because I just would feel everything and then I would shut down. I'd like feel everything and then shut down, then feel everything and then shut down. And so until I learned how to really work with the energy of that tremendous grief that would happen for me when I started to breathe in the suffering of the world, I was basically immobilized and couldn't do much. And now that's a big part of my daily practice, is feeling the suffering of the world and breathing it in, and and then coming to peace in my own being with that. And it's, I think, what allows me to be able to be in, I want to say I'm always in right action, because a lot of times I'm like spinning circles around, like probably doing things that I don't necessarily need to be doing, or not always. It's not, none of us are always on point, but it is what allows me to be in right action and on my path and in my purpose. Like a good portion of the time is that work. So I'm very grateful for this work also. And you mentioned grief and praise, Madison, and that terminology comes from Martin Prechtel. He talks about the two being the two sides of the same mandala or same coin, and that it's all love, and that we need to be able to both praise and grieve. That's healthy humanness, healthy culture can do that. So yeah, so that is a little bit about me, and I think that's a great segue to introduce Elizabeth, who has definitely been a big helper for me on that journey. Elizabeth and I met 17 years ago now, and I can very easily keep track of it because I was literally about to give birth when we met. And I have a 17-year-old, I'm very blessed to have a 17-year-old boy. And yeah, Elizabeth, meeting her was really such a game changer for me, because I had never met someone who understood what was happening in my nervous system to the level that she did. When we met, she was like, oh yeah, I can feel what's happening for you and we can work with that. And just having that mirroring, that reflection, and that like, and it's okay, we can work with that, absolutely changed my life. And so a little bit about Elizabeth. She's been studying the Vajrayana and Nature of Mind teachings in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition directly with Mingyur Rinpoche since 2008. She's taken the Bodhisattva vow, and her deepest aspiration is to support all beings with wisdom and compassion, and to practice this in the world as best she can. And this has come to manifest in many forms: meditation and yoga teacher, craniosacral and somatic therapist, founder and owner of a healing arts center, kirtan leader, doula, also through mothering, mentoring, and sacred partnership. She's an experience-based IFS-informed somatic and craniosacral therapist with over 25 years of direct practice. She does one-on-one sessions that are trauma-informed, somatically based, and transformational. Her work is client-led and focuses awareness on the subtle body level to address the root cause of whatever issues are presenting. And her practice is informed by many years of training, studies, and certifications, which include 30 years of advanced yoga studies, Iyengar yoga, Vijnana yoga teacher training, and essential somatic yoga teacher training. 25 years of Tibetan Buddhism meditation with Mingyur Rinpoche, up-ledger craniosacral training, somato-emotional release, and 20 years of one-on-one mentorship with craniosacral therapist and meditator, yes, Brian Finney, yeah. And she currently resides by the ocean on the traditional territory. I'm gonna let you pronounce the traditional territory that you're on. I don't know why I don't know that one. I'm gonna let you say that because I don't want to butcher it. But yeah, and so Elizabeth leads the meditation sessions. We have once a month in our grief support group community, we have a meditation for nervous system regulation and emotional healing led by Elizabeth herself. Very profound sessions that I highly recommend. And I'll invite you to, unmute yourself now and maybe say where you live first.
Thank you, Josiah.
And then, if you want to respond to those same questions of,
Way come, the territory, the way come peoples, and there was another one there. What is it? It's Liquida.
Yeah, Liquida. Okay.
Yeah, the two nations that are here where I am right now, and I feel really like so full with everybody's sharing right now, and everybody that shared, there were parts of it like I was like, oh yeah, that I totally resonate with that, and totally resonate with that. So many things actually, and I was thinking like, wow, how am I going to encapsulate my story into something that's, cohesive and short? But suffice to say that I'm a highly sensitive person. I was a very highly sensitive child, and I feel like my life has been a series of rough initiations and awakenings. So it's kind of, I've gone into this like deep, rough initiations, and then I've come out into these really extreme big awakenings. And it has been a very interesting journey, to say the least. And when I was feeling into the question earlier about like how it opened for me, how grief really opened for me, because I feel like I was grieving. Like my mother said, I was born happy, and then, so, but I feel like I've been grieving my whole life, but I didn't recognize that I was grieving until I was dancing in a dance company, and one of my colleagues, who is a very, very dear friend of mine, came up to me and he said, like, what's wrong? And I was like, like I just couldn't cry, and he just put his arms around me and he held me and he said, you can just cry. And I just cried, cried and cried. And that was the beginning of a lot of crying. But it was because I was held in community. I was held by somebody. I was witnessed. I didn't even know that I would call that grief at the time. I just knew that this was, now I can look back and say, oh, that's when the grief work really opened for me, was when I was held by somebody who gave me permission to grieve. Basically, like I had permission to let go of all this grief I'd been carrying. And that was in my early 20s. So I'm 60 now, and it's continued on, the cycle of rough initiations and awakenings. And I think one of the things that hasn't been shared that I would like to share too is that what I've learned, like when people are saying about their capacity, like we've gained capacity, and what exactly is capacity? And for me, capacity is being able to hold myself in the grief. And that has been a huge game changer you know, is to be able to, like what Madison was saying, like getting lost in the trauma vortex and staying, like really crying, not healthily, you know, not a healthy self, but coming into being able to come back to myself and hold the grief at the same time. And that sort of that combination of both the, you know, grieving and being held coming from inside myself is what I feel like capacity is, actually. And it's, you know, it's great that there's community and, you know, all of that is so important as well. But that's been really the game changer for me, is that I can hold my grief, which is my grief, but it's also universal grief. Like that's what I've been you know, asked to hold. And so yeah. And I'm just really so grateful to you, Josia, for, you know, initiating this this container. I feel so grateful to be here, and I feel so happy to share the techniques and practices that I've used over the past 60 years of my life to help regulate nervous system and heal our emotional bodies. So I'm just really grateful to be here with you all. I feel very privileged to be in this group. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and as I said, you know, highly recommend Elizabeth's sessions in regards to tools. You know, she's got some highly refined, you know, tools that are based in lineage and really powerful. So thank you for sharing. And yeah, I just want to reflect back a little bit of what you're, you know, that building capacity. I mean, that happens in relationship, right? It happens, we build that capacity in relationship, and then we have it on our own. But first we have to have it, you know, because we're designed to be, to have regulation mirrored when we're babies by our primary caregiver. And many of us don't get that, or we don't get enough of it, you know, or maybe our primary caregiver is stressed or distracted, or, you know, in fear or something else going on, or just never got that kind of regulation themselves. And so then we have to build it as adults. And you know, that's a lot of what Elizabeth and I both teach and we work with and teach in the community, and being in community and the co-regulation that happens in the container of the group work is really what supports that building of capacity when we're then on our own outside of the community. So just wanted to mention that, you know, the kind of path there, the stepping stones of what Elizabeth's talking about. So. And finally, I want to introduce the amazing, the one and only, our beautiful elder, Jane Spielman. And Jane and I met, I think, gosh, almost 2.5 years ago now, when Jane, I think you found me on like Facebook or something, and you were like, I see this training. I think I need to be a part of that. So she was also with Madison, a part of our first Dark Woods grief tending and ritual facilitation training. Sorry, I'm getting a little bit tired, and I've said too many words tonight, so there's the brain capacity for speaking is slowing down, but I've got a little bit more left in me. So yeah, Jane was a part of that first training, and then she's just stuck around basically. And she continues to stick around, and I'm so blessed by that. So she was part of the intern, one of our facilitators in the community last year, and now she's on our paid facilitation team. She brings so much to this community and to the training, and a little bit about her background. So before finding us, she worked as an educator for 50 years, supporting transformative inquiry-based literacy for children from birth through teenagers to undergraduate and graduate teacher candidates. She helped build trauma and healing-informed school programs all over New York City that got to the root of what was in the way of students learning. Jane believes that learning how to grieve and face trauma in safe enough spaces is essential to physical, emotional, and spiritual life, and is absolutely essential in the process of discovering the gifts we have to offer the world. Excuse me. Oh dear. Voice is wearing out. Jane has studied with Zen and Tibetan Buddhist masters, hospice providers, and is a graduating student in our training. Not graduating, graduated. And her work is grounded in these lineages, as well as somatic tools, internal family systems work, and Reiki. Jane is a Jewish anti-Zionist who believes we are born for these times, and a lifelong activist with a focus on allyship in anti-colonialist struggles. She's also a proud lesbian who has always represented and collaborated with other LGBTQ2S folks. She's built her own active practice now in Sow the Seeds of Healing to support individuals, as well as groups in somatic grief and trauma work. And I'm going to pass the mic to you now, Jane.
So when Madison came in, this doll that she made me for my birthday, that you made me for my birthday this time last year, just came to me. And it's symbolic, I think, of what happened when we had the bio break, and the phrase grief is love, grief is love, grief is love, grief is love, just repeated over and over and over again. Thanks again for this being that's always with me, Madison. I started grieving in the womb, my mother's womb, but I didn't know it or deal with I started by dealing with somatics for many years in order to surface my own grief, but actively grieving work happened after my wife and I had been together for 30 years, and we started to experience her dementia, and she was 17 years older than I, and getting emotional. All of you are so incredibly beautiful that it builds and builds, like what Elizabeth was saying. And so I feel I'm a double Pisces, so I'm feeling everything. So I started, that's 9 years ago. She died 4 years ago almost. And I knew that I was losing her. And that process went for 5 years. I called it grief. And I named it, and was doing some Buddhist, Jewish, and Zen practices. And Leah, my wife, encouraged me to do one-to-one and group and couples work, because she felt the strength of my ability to do that. And so after she died, I had a lot of grief happening, and kind of typical kinds of support, hospice type support. Then I saw this online, and I was walking in this giant park I live next to on Lenny Lenape land, Manhattan, New York. And I was walking with the pastoral intern from the synagogue with whom I'd gotten very close and had helped me through the funeral and the Shiva and the year of mourning and the ceremonies that Jews have to bury and then put a stone up a year later. It's called the Yortzeit. And so I was involved in these Jewish and Buddhist rituals. But I came across this, and I was saying to Yael, I think I might start doing this grief facilitation work. And right then, in the park, there was an owl, which is Leah's symbol. And that owl, and so Yael turned to me and she said, I guess Leah approves. And so the whole notion of taking divine guidance, and what my book is called, that's getting edited now, Choiceless Choices, of, calls to action. I'm always called to action, and it's very interesting what Josiah says about the desperateness of that and where that comes from and when it gets more relaxed. So my brother died last week, and he was disengaged from his family. But I was engaging with him almost every day for a few minutes down in Florida. And so today I received in the mail, I was telling all of you earlier, a few strands of his hair from his caretaker. She and I had talked about, how to do this. And so the fact that I've been in grief ritual now for years, and particularly this container community of anti-colonial grief work, that's what brought me in. I'm like, there's grief work, there's grief work, there's grief work, but this is explicitly anti-colonial. And so I didn't have to think it out. She wrote a beautiful card, and it was wrapped in a beautiful way. And so I walked into the park and I went to my tree at our retreat. One of the first retreat I was on with Josiah, you mentioned find a tree, make a relationship with a tree. Well, I have relationship with a lot of trees, but this one I like in particular, and I've been starting to deposit things behind her with permission. I had to ask her first, and she approved. And so I put my brother Steve's hair today behind the tree, where I put some stones like from our ending ritual, and I put, it's kind of collecting my little nest there. And I met with a client this afternoon, and I told her this, and she said she's a birder, and she said, oh, the birds will use it for making their nests, so there's like, a little clump of this hair there, and I kissed it and just put him there, and it was beautiful. So that's what's changed. What initiated me into this space was losing the relationship that I'd had for 30 years, even though we were still together for 5 more years. And then what changed is this ability to just pull that off. Got the hair, thought of a ritual, put it, my own way, and there it is. And I felt very happy about it and somewhat resolved. I mean, it's not all fixed. We don't fix it. We just make the container bigger. We say, our grief is so big at the beginning, it takes up the whole space. And then the container gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And so that's what shifted, is containers gotten bigger. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jane. So I had planned to, at this point, give a little bit of a spiel about the Dark Woods Grief Support Group. But given that my voice is like basically at its end, I don't think I can talk very much more tonight. I think I just want to open up the room for if anyone wants to share anything, they're inspired to share something about your own experience or process. If you have questions about the grief support group container, or if you have questions about any of our other programs as well. We also have our facilitator training open for registration right now, and the Return from the Underworld course. Yeah, so I'll just open it up, and maybe I'll actually just ask our team to start us off with, did any of you guys want to say anything about the grief support group and the grief and pray sessions and the container? yeah, maybe let's go to Shonda and then Jane, because Shonda was in the grief support group for a couple of years, so she knows it very well and intimately. I think you're muted though.
Yeah, I was actually just messaging you to be like, well, I could probably give it a shot at explaining.
Awesome.
Yeah, so as Josia says, I was in the sessions for a while, and kind of similar to, I think, what actually, Madison, your entire story. I'm like, yep, yep. But I was also kind of, like, well, what that, I was doing one-on-one. I was kind of like, why would I join that? But yeah, truly just like being in community, and that sense of I'm not alone is really like, that's what was foundationally different and transformational. So I feel like when I was in them at first, they were a little, the structure kind of changed a little bit. I don't know, Josie, if that's true or if that was maybe just my experience of them.
We dance now.
Yeah, we dance now for sure. Yeah. And I think we just kind of didn't always do the same thing, the way we do now. But, now it's a beautiful, you know, like, yeah, it's a ritual. But it's consistent. And so I think you can, it's easy to sort of sink into and really allow, what needs to move. So we start off the group, similar to what we did tonight, with a grounding meditation, a somatic meditation, usually fairly short. And someone will typically do a reading or two of poetry or something that's moved them, one of the facilitators. Um, and so there's sort of that opening piece, and then we move into, um, just kind of grounding ourselves in where we are tonight, how we're doing, or tonight or in the morning or whenever it is, wherever you are. And so that can be in the big group, depending how many people are there. Often it's split off into smaller groups, and yeah, just sharing sort of what you're grateful for and what we call it struggling or snuggling with. What's your current, big pain, or what's in your heart, what's on your heart, what's there for you. So that's in small groups typically, to give a chance to connect and just see each other, and kind of see ourselves too. I find a lot of the time it's like, oh, this is how I am today. So, those are both sort of the opening pieces. And then the main part of those sessions, we do a couple of practices. The first one is called shuttles, and it's a writing practice, to, yeah, basically just explore what comes up for you. It's like a free form, stream of consciousness writing. So just kind of never letting your pen come off the page, and keep moving. And it's bounded in time. So it's fairly short, and there will be a few prompts. So you pick the one that sort of resonates the most. And, the idea is to just go where it takes you. It's not really, you're not set in a certain direction. And as I said, it's bounded. So it's short. It's quite a small period of time. And then you have the opportunity to read those to each other. And what's really beautiful about the reading, and this was really, I think, something that was also very foundational for me, it really changed the way I looked at things, was we're just witnessing. We're not offering advice. We're not telling people what they should be feeling or how they should be approaching a situation. It's, we're really just seeing each other and thanking each other for sharing what we've written, and that's it. And I know for me, that was never my experience. It was, if you share, even with the most well-intentioned friend or family, it's, well, have you thought about this? Oh, have you tried this? And that's not always what we need, right? And so this practice of being witnessed in where you are, and that's it, is really, yeah, really supportive. And then, as Josia mentioned, now we move. It can be dance, it can be movement. Dance can sound intimidating, so I like to say we move uh afterwards. And it really, that has been huge for me too. Just like in my own personal practice now, when there's something that just feels like way too big to hold, I'm like, okay, where's the music? um yeah, and just, it's amazing how it just helps to move whatever came up. And you know, it's not like, oh, it's gone, I'm fine now, but it really just clears your soma and allows you to come back to a grounded, centered place. You know, and it's that pendulation that Madison and I think a couple others talked about, where we've gone somewhere, you know, that might have been hard and painful, and then we've come back to this connection and support, and then we kind of move it all around. And yeah, generally there's a pretty profound collective sense of just peace and you know, finding a little bit of spaciousness, as Jane said, growing that container a little bit through these processes. And yeah, when you do it all the time, it really, the growth amplifies, and you find yourself with a really big container. And so that's been my experience of mostly participating, and had my initiation to facilitation last month. So yeah, that's, I guess, just like an overview, kind of some of the details, but hopefully not too many. And I'll pass it to you, Jane.
I think that was perfect. You know, the structure holds the safety, and the predictability of the structure holds the safety, but your description is right on.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Do you want me to ask people to share or ask questions about what's coming, the other people, Josiah?
Yeah, and I'm just gonna try my voice for a second here, and just really want to emphasize the power of doing this work in community, you know, versus I think, you know, therapy is amazing, like one-on-one therapy. That also can even be intimidating, I know, but one-on-one therapy is really powerful. But when we get in a group, a larger group of people who are experiencing grief in all kinds of different ways, we start to really feel and like understand on a visceral, somatic level that, you know, everyone experiences suffering. It's a part of being human, you know, and also when we see each other in that place and share that, I mean, I just always feel like I fall in love with everybody who I share this kind of space with. You know, it's like we all just fall in love, because it's like you can't see someone in that, in the raw power and beauty of, you know, the deep grief and praise that comes through that also, without just like falling in love with them, you know. And I think if you know, humanity could experience this in a broader way, we would be doing much better collectively, you know. So it's really, when we say yes to this work, it's actually, I see it as a form of leadership in the world. You know, we're saying like, yeah, I'm willing to lead the way through the dark woods by being willing to like just actually, it's not even be willing to go there because we're already there. It's just like accepting, like opening our eyes and being like, okay, I accept that I'm here. And okay, great, like let's, yeah, actually some companions would be good in this situation, you know. So yeah, Kimber, go ahead.
It was making me think, I actually am not sure, and I don't even really want to go there, what would have happened to me if I hadn't found Josiah and this group. Because there's more to my story, and I pretty much lost everything when I lost my daughter. And even the people that were still around me didn't know how to even talk to me, or it was just, and I was so alone. And so for to go into this and then all of a sudden have an entire community that knew exactly how to be with me was I mean, it's life changing, really is.
Thanks, Kimber. Yeah. So yeah, I'd love to just open it up to anybody that would like to share or ask or Yeah, Raven.
Hi, can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
All right, I'm new at the Zoom world, so forgive SpongeBob in the background. It's my temporary babysitter while my son, while I'm here, my son watches cartoons. First of all, I just really want to acknowledge sort of the serendipitous magic of the universe that sort of brought me here tonight. And I'm incredibly moved by everything that everyone's shared. And I've been sort of in search of a group and an offering like this for some time. I just haven't sort of felt the fit, but I do here. And so I guess I'm going to share quickly because I live on a small island on the same territory as Elizabeth. And so I have a ferry to catch and pick up my husband and so on. So I'll share quickly and then I'm going to excuse myself. But I will follow up. I think that if I'm just sharing sort of when my initiation, I mean, I really connect and identify with the being born into trauma, intergenerationally with, intergenerational biological grief and trauma from the residential school system, and my mom being quite unwell, like her whole life. Me and, I'm sure experiencing trauma in utero and all of that. And so I'm a therapist myself, only I'm on a medical retirement due to acquiring a brain injury. So that all happened about 7 years ago. And since then, I've had incredible shifts in life. Things to be thankful and gratitude for: the birth of my son. He's a rainbow baby, and I really believe he's here to teach me. And without him, I'm not sure where I would be, because again, in the last 7 years or so, I've always experienced much loss, and so it's a very sort of normative experience for me. But the shifts have come sort of since I moved out of sort of a clinical academic world, even though I connected in community, like through ceremony and Sundance and other things. I never truly sort of felt awakened, maybe because I didn't have, I thought my greatest loss was the loss of fertility until I was granted that gift. And I've recently lost my mom and my brother, which are my closest biological relatives, among so many other relatives. And I'm sort of the one left feeling like the matriarch and like this call to action, which I really identify with. And, being in a state of retirement, but also knowing that these life experiences are meant to be shared and to, for lack of a better word, to capitalize and grow and create this container and find a way to work with grief in my community, with others that are grieving or have had these rites of passage, and seeing the gifts, like doing the shadow work and the inner child work and all of such. So I just really want to acknowledge and thank everybody for being here, and I will be following up and continuing this journey. And I'm really have been looking for safety and a structure where I feel like, there's that ability to have trust and vulnerability. I'm actually heading into this Sunday, a grief and loss 4 or 5 day retreat here on the land, hosted by the local nation. I'm from the prairies myself, but most of my healing's been done on this small island, and with, with the Way We Come, the folks here, and over at Zaqualuton, which I believe is Cape Mudge. And so I'm a visitor here. However, this is sort of my healing community. Forgive my brain fart here. I'm lost my train of thought. I just wanted to take a moment and yeah, I really, I'm happy to be here, and I want to learn and know about all of it, these sessions, the facilitator training. I need to find a way to do the work collaboratively and without that hierarchical sort of structure that comes with when you're working in a clinical setting and, you know, I'm the therapist or
Yeah.
you know what I mean? And so finding a way to do that collectively and in a really, you know what I mean? Like equal, equitable way. So,
Yes, that's
thank you.
that's the decolonial nature that
Yes.
we're trying to work with here, yeah, as much as possible. I mean, we're still, you know, obviously there's still, even when we intend to do everything as decolonial as possible, there's still layers that can come in, but I think that intention to work with it and to create that non-hierarchical structure. Thank you so much for being here and just for sharing a little bit of your story. And yeah, I look forward to, we'll probably chat again soon. Yeah, thanks, Raven. I just need to plug in my laptop here. Anybody else would like to share? You can just unmute yourself and share, or raise your hand if you want to. Love to hear a few more voices. And thank you, Joanna, for your, needing ritual and rites of passage. Yeah.
I suppose I could say hello to everybody. I'm Joanna, and living on the traditional territory of the Ojibwa, Odawa, and Potawatomi peoples along the Straits of Detroit, which is also known as Windsor, Ontario, Canada. And I am so relieved and grateful to hear, first of all, the richness of experience represented here in everyone who spoke, and those who haven't spoken to out loud, but just the richness of heart and depth and the experiences and knowledge too. The wisdom is just already so overwhelming. It's in a great way. In a great way. It's just really amazing how very deep we can go just like that, just like that, in a group that maybe has or hasn't met each other before. And it's, you know, we found our common territory of grief, and that's just the most powerful that it gets, really, to me, is the shedding of all of the rest and to get right into the core, and also to know that people have been traveling this path and have seen themselves move out of the hardest part of it, in and out of it, and out of it, and in and out of it, and continuing, you know. It's very, very, very healing for me just to hear that, because it does feel very isolating at times to deal with one's own grief. And really, for a lot of years, I've felt quite isolated. I've known that people go through things I go through, but to actually hear and connect with people over that experience is a very different thing. So I'm just very grateful to be here, and I work a lot with expressive arts in my own therapeutic journey, and in sound healing with the voice, with others. And as soon as you start sounding, people go right into their, or have the potential to go right into their heart, into whatever they're feeling through their voice. And so you very quickly tap into that wherever they're at with whatever they've been experiencing. So I'm really happy to hear that there's movement and dance and writing, journaling involved in this. I'm big on the movement and sound and somatics. So this is very exciting to me as well, to hear this happening here. So I was drawn by the title, Dark Woods of Grief. And I kept writing it down on different pieces of paper. So I got to get back to the woods of grief. I've got to get back to the dark path of the woods. And I kept changing the title every time I wrote it. what is the title of that? I have to go back and look at my email to remember. Oh yeah, this is a perfect name for it. This is a perfect name for what we're dealing with. Yeah. And I appreciate that it's also connecting to the land, right? Just even the title of this, because I very much resonate to the grief of what I'm seeing happen to the land. I'm very nature connected, and yeah. So thank you so much. Thank you for everybody who has shared tonight, and those are holding the energy in the circle as well, just by being here. Thank you.
Thank you. Glad you shared your voice with us too. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, the name, I mean, it's interesting because Madison and I were both, that's how we met, was we were both a part of this deep nature connection community on Salt Spring Island. And that was really my initiation into actually offering grief work into the world. Was I was offering grief. Well, I was kind of voted as the one who should do the grief support in that community in the gatherings, because I was a therapist and I suck at everything else to do with like nature skills, like primitive. I can't make a fire with a bow drill, or like I can tan hides actually, but not my specialty. So they're like, you can be the grief tender. I'm like, okay, that I can do. And you know, so we were, you know, deep in the deep nature connection, and I started to really draw the analogy of like, okay, so like all these people have these primitive skills, you know, like they can survive out in the forest for days because of the skills that they've developed. But what about like, you know, it's so similar to where we find ourselves in grief, where it's like we're suddenly in this terrain where if we haven't developed these skills that have more or less been lost to at least Western culture, then we may not make it through. You know, we may not be able to survive in that place. And it's certainly going to be a lot more painful. You know, I mean, it's painful anyways, but when we don't have community and we don't have skills, it's almost impossible. So that's where the name comes from. Yeah.
Blanche had her hand up. Blanche.
Oh, yeah, go ahead, Blanche. Oh, you're muted. Here, let me
I was just saying it's 10 o'clock, so I took we're ending at 10, right?
yeah, we're ending. Yeah, we're gonna end now. Did you want to say something
Okay.
quickly before we end? Or you're
Yeah,
just
I'm
it's over,
impressed.
guys. Okay. Yeah, great.
Just, you know, I have my reservations about coming to the retreat all the way from New York, and it's not really reservations, it's just, well, it's how I do things. I just jump and land, and usually you know, it's always better than I had imagined. So thank you, everybody, for sharing so gently and beautifully your stories. And I especially, Jane was a kind of like a beacon and modeling um, to come. You probably don't know it, but we're always working and serving, even sometimes when we don't know it. So I'm in the classroom, and the classroom is great, but the classroom is not going to get me, well, it'll get some of what I need, but I'm just looking forward to coming to the retreat.
Yeah,
Thank you.
so looking forward to having you. Yeah. Yeah, it is gonna be good. We're gonna have a beautiful
Mhm, mhm. I believe you. Thank you.
time.
Mhm.
Okay.
My
So yeah, and if anyone, you know, I do want to wrap up just in honor of everyone's time, but if anyone, if you have questions and want to follow up with me and our team later via email, feel free to reach out to us. And yeah, I look forward to seeing some of you again. Many of you again. I'm sure most of you again, probably, I think.
Mhm.
So thank you so much for sharing this time with us tonight. And I would just Especially want to just give a huge heartfelt gratitude to our team. You all are amazing. I'm so grateful for each and every one of you, and just the incredible width and breadth of diversity that we can really offer here, you know. And also to Stephen, I feel like you're like if we were an in-person kind of situation, you'd be like the guy who just like hugs everyone. Like, and you do that metaphorically, you know, you do that, like, you're in the right place, you're in the right place, it's gonna be okay, you're in the right place, you know. And I'm just so grateful to have you in our community. So I just, even though you didn't share much tonight, I just want to acknowledge you. Yeah. Okay, and may our work together, may this work that we do together, may it benefit all beings everywhere. May all beings be happy, may all beings be peaceful, and may all beings be free of suffering and the causes of suffering. And may we all recognize our liberation together. Thank you. 1,000 thank yous.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Take care.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Team, we will maybe stay and do a quick debrief. Those of you who haven't left yet. I should have said it earlier. Hi. Woohoo! Oh, let me stop the recording.